The steam from my coffee had long since stopped rising by the time I actually remembered it existed. Cold now, bitter, sitting on the corner of my desk in the cramped back office of Lincoln Elementary School, where I'd worked for the past 4 years as a guidance counselor. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed with that persistent hum that had become white noise, barely distinguishable from the sound of my own exhaustion. I rubbed my eyes, smearing the cheap mascara I'd applied that morning in my car because I'd overslept again. 31 years old, and I was still showing up to work with makeup done at red lights. Still eating granola bars for lunch because I forgot to grocery shop. Still staying late to finish paperwork because the kids needed me during actual work hours. My younger sister Lily would have laughed at me. She always said I cared too much, that I let other people's problems consume me until there was nothing left for myself. But Lily was 17 and still believed the world was fundamentally good, that people got what they deserved, that hard work and kindness were always rewarded. I used to believe that too. Before I spent 4 years watching kids slip through every crack in a broken system. The stack of incident reports in front of me wasn't getting any smaller. Marcus Chen, 3rd grade, showing signs of food insecurity. I'd already contacted social services twice. They were looking into it. Emma Rodriguez, 5th grade, bruises on her arms that she said came from soccer practice, except her school didn't have a soccer program. Report filed, investigation pending. Nothing concrete enough to remove her from her home. Sometimes I wondered if I was actually helping anyone, or just documenting their suffering in triplicate. My phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Staying late at youth center tonight. Tutoring session ran over. Don't wait up for dinner. I smiled despite my exhaustion. That was Lily, always helping, always giving. She volunteered at the Riverside Youth Center 3 nights a week, tutoring kids from the neighborhood in math and English. She had this gift for making learning feel like an adventure instead of a chore. The kids adored her. Be safe. Text me when you're heading home, I sent back. The reply came immediately. Yes, Mom. I wasn't her mom, but I'd raised her since our parents died in a car accident 6 years ago. I was 25 when I became both sister and guardian, when my world narrowed to court dates and custody hearings, and figuring out how to keep us afloat on a guidance counselor's salary while Lily finished high school. We'd made it work, barely. Our apartment was small, our furniture was secondhand, and we ate a lot of pasta. But Lily was thriving. Straight A's, college applications already submitted, a future bright enough to make all the struggle worthwhile. She was everything good that remained in my life, and I would do anything to protect her. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The knock on my office door was so soft I almost missed it. I looked up to see Principal Morrison standing there with an expression I'd learned to recognize over the years. The one that meant something was very wrong. Kate, she said quietly, there's a situation. A child just walked into the main office. He's asking for help, but he won't talk to anyone except a counselor. He's terrified. I was already standing, my cold coffee forgotten, my exhaustion pushed aside by the familiar rush of adrenaline that came with crisis mode. Where is he? Conference room B. Kate, he's not one of our students. I've never seen him before. That made me pause. Lincoln Elementary was in a rough neighborhood on Chicago's south side. But we knew our kids, knew the families, knew which children belonged to which struggling households. A stranger child asking for help could mean anything from a runaway situation to something far worse. I'll talk to him, I said, already moving past Morrison into the hallway. Conference room B was at the end of the administrative wing, a small space we used for difficult parent meetings and crisis interventions. Through the window in the door, I could see a small figure sitting at the table, shoulders hunched forward, head down. I opened the door slowly, making sure he heard me coming. Hi there. My name is Kate. I'm a counselor here. Principal Morrison said you wanted to talk to someone? The boy looked up, and my heart clenched. He couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes that had seen far too much for someone so young. His clothes were clean but worn, and his sneakers had holes in the toes. But it was the expression on his face that broke me, pure, desperate terror, barely held in check by a child's determination to be brave. Are you going to help? He asked, his voice small but steady. Or are you going to tell me to wait like all the other grown-ups? I pulled out the chair across from him and sat down, making sure I was at his eye level. I'm going to listen first. Then we'll figure out what kind of help you need. Can you tell me your name? Tommy. He swallowed hard. Tommy Castellano. The name meant nothing to me, but I filed it away for later. Okay, Tommy, what brought you here tonight? His hands were shaking. I could see him gripping the edge of the table, trying to hold himself together. My sister. The bad men took my sister. My blood ran cold. Someone took your sister? When, Tommy? When did this happen? 10 minutes ago. His voice cracked. Maybe 15 now. I ran as fast as I could to find help. But the police station was too far, and then I saw this school and I thought maybe someone here would. He stopped, fighting tears. She told me if anything bad ever happened, I should find a grown-up I could trust. But I don't know who to trust. 15 minutes. If someone had actually abducted his sister, we were already losing precious time. I kept my voice calm, gentle, even as my mind raced through protocols. Tommy, you did exactly the right thing coming here. I'm so proud of you for being brave. I need you to tell me everything you remember, okay? Start from the beginning. He nodded, swiping at his eyes with the back of his hand. We were walking home from the library. Me and Sophia, my sister. She's 16. We always walk together because our neighborhood isn't safe after dark. I made a mental note: library, walking home, unsafe neighborhood. Where do you live, Tommy? Riverside District, near the old warehouses. His voice was getting stronger now that someone was actually listening. We were on Delancey Street when this white van pulled up. 2 men got out. Sophia told me to run, told me to hide, but I couldn't just leave her. His voice broke completely, tears streaming down his face now. I reached across the table and gently took his hand. You're safe now, Tommy. Take your time. They grabbed her, he whispered. She fought. She kicked one of them really hard, but there were 2 of them and they were so big. They put something over her face like a cloth, and she just went limp. Then they threw her in the van and drove away. Chloroform, or some other sedative. This wasn't a random snatch, this was planned, professional. Human trafficking, most likely, and if that was the case, we had maybe a few hours before Sophia was moved out of the city entirely. Did you see what the men looked like? Any details about the van? Tommy nodded quickly. The van had a blue stripe on the side and one of the back doors was dented. The license plate started with HKR. I remember because those are my uncle's initials. The men were white, both of them. One had a tattoo on his neck, like a snake or something. The other one was bald, and he's the one Sophia kicked. This child had just given me more useful information than most adult witnesses could provide under stress. He was smart, observant, and absolutely terrified for his sister. Tommy, that's incredibly helpful. You did such a good job remembering those details. I squeezed his hand gently. Now I need to ask you something important. Where are your parents? Can we call them? His expression shuddered immediately. Mom's dead. Dad's. He hesitated. Dad's complicated. Complicated how? He's important. Busy. He told us to never bother him unless it was life or death. Tommy's voice dropped to barely a whisper. This is life or death, isn't it? Yes, I said honestly. Because children deserve truth even when it was terrifying. This is serious, Tommy. Your sister needs help right away. If your dad is available, we should contact him. Do you have his number? I know where he is, Tommy said. Right now. Tonight. But he looked down at our joined hands. He's scary. People are afraid of him. But he'd help Sophia. I know he would. He loves us, even if he doesn't show it the normal way. Every instinct I had was screaming warnings. A father who was important and scary, who made people afraid, who told his children not to contact him except for emergencies. This painted a picture I didn't like. But if this man had resources that could help find Sophia before she disappeared into whatever hell awaited trafficking victims, I didn't have the luxury of being cautious. Where is your father right now, Tommy? The Marconi Club. He has a business meeting there every Wednesday night. He looked up at me with those 2 old eyes. It's about 6 blocks from here. I can show you. The Marconi Club. I knew that name, had heard it whispered in the same breath as organized crime and protection rackets, and the kind of business that happened in back rooms with locked doors. If Tommy's father was there, if his last name was really Castellano, then I was about to walk into something far more dangerous than a difficult parent conference. But a 16-year-old girl had been kidnapped probably 20 minutes ago now. Every second I spent deliberating was a second. Sophia was getting farther away from safety. I stood up, still holding Tommy's hand. Okay, let's go find your father. Principal Morrison tried to stop me in the hallway. Kate, wait. I called the police. They're sending someone, but it might be 20 minutes. We don't have 20 minutes, I interrupted. I'm taking Tommy to his father. He's nearby, and he might have resources the police don't. Kate, this isn't protocol. You can't just leave school property with a child who isn't enrolled here. So fire me, I said, already moving toward the exit with Tommy. But I'm not letting another child slip through the cracks because we followed protocol instead of doing what was right. The walk to the Marconi Club took 7 minutes that felt like hours. Tommy practically ran, and I had to jog to keep up, my sensible counselor flats slapping against the cracked sidewalk. The neighborhood deteriorated, with each block boarded up storefronts giving way to bars with blacked-out windows. Groups of men standing on corners watching us pass with calculating eyes. "Tommy, slow down," I said, pulling him back slightly as we approached a brick building with a discreet sign that simply read, Marconi. "Tell me about your father. What's his name? What should I expect?" "His name is Luca Castellano," Tommy said, and the way he said it made it clear he expected me to recognize it. He handles business for the neighborhood. Protection, loans, import-export. People respect him. Fear him, I translated mentally. People fear him. "Tommy, is your father—" I didn't know how to phrase this delicately to a 7-year-old. "Is he involved in illegal activities?" "He says everything he does is for family," Tommy replied, which wasn't an answer but told me everything I needed to know. He told Sophia and me that when we're old enough to understand, we'll see that someone has to keep order, has to make sure the neighborhood doesn't fall apart. He says he's providing a service. We reached the entrance. 2 massive men in dark suits flanked the door, and they both straightened when they saw Tommy. "Tommy," one of them said, surprise clear in his voice. "What are you doing here?" "Your dad said you and Sophia were at the library." "I need to see him now," Tommy interrupted, his voice cracking with desperation. "It's Sophia. Someone took her. Bad men in a white van. We need Dad right now." Both men's expressions transformed from surprise to lethal focus. "Inside," the first one said immediately, pulling open the door. "Nico, get Luca, now." We were ushered through a dimly lit entrance into a hallway that led to what sounded like a restaurant or bar, low conversation, clinking glasses, the smell of expensive cigars. But we were directed to a different door, one that opened into a private room. And that's when I saw him. Luca Castellano sat at the head of a polished mahogany table, surrounded by 5 other men in expensive suits. Papers were spread across the table's surface: contracts, blueprints, what looked like financial statements. He was in his mid-30s, younger than I'd expected, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, and eyes the color of aged whiskey that were currently fixed on a document in front of him. He was devastatingly handsome in a way that felt almost dangerous, like beauty designed as a weapon. The suit he wore probably cost more than 3 months of my rent, perfectly tailored to broad shoulders that suggested he did more than sit at desks and sign papers. His hands, I noticed, had scarred knuckles. This was a man who'd done his own violence, not just ordered it. "And the shipment from Newark needs to be processed by Friday," one of the other men was saying. "The buyers won't wait longer than that." "Then make sure it arrives on time," Luca said, his voice low and controlled, carrying absolute authority. "I don't accept excuses, Michael. I accept results." The door burst open. "Boss, your son is here. He says Sophia's been taken." Every head in the room turned toward us. Luca's gaze found Tommy first, then slid to me, and the impact of his full attention was like a physical force. Those whiskey eyes narrowed, assessing me in the span of a heartbeat: my wrinkled blouse, my smeared mascara, my protective grip on his son's shoulder. "Papa," Tommy said, his voice small in this room full of dangerous men. "Bad men took Sophia. 10 minutes ago. Maybe 20 now." I watched Luca's expression change. The controlled mob boss vanished, replaced for just a fraction of a second by a father's raw terror. Then the control slammed back down, but something deadly had awakened underneath. "Everyone out," he said quietly. "Now." The room cleared in seconds. The men didn't question, didn't hesitate, just gathered their papers and left through a side door until it was just Luca, Tommy, me, and the guard who'd announced us. Luca stood, moving around the table with predatory grace. He dropped to one knee in front of Tommy, his hands gently gripping his son's shoulders. "Tell me everything, Figlio. Everything you remember." Tommy repeated his story, his voice steadier now that his father was listening. The white van with the blue stripe and dented door. The license plate starting with HKR. The 2 men, one with a neck tattoo, one bald. Sophia fighting before they sedated her. The location on Delancey Street. Luca's hands tightened on Tommy's shoulders, the only sign of his emotional response. When Tommy finished, Luca pulled him into a fierce hug. You did exactly right coming to me. You were so brave, Tommy. Your sister would be proud. Then he stood and looked at me, really looked at me, and I felt stripped bare under that gaze. And you are? Kate Morgan. I'm a guidance counselor at Lincoln Elementary. Tommy came to the school for help. I brought him here because I lifted my chin, refusing to be intimidated. Because a 16-year-old girl has been abducted, and every second we waste talking about protocol is a second she gets farther away from safety. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. You walked through this neighborhood at night to bring my son to a place you probably know is dangerous. Why? Because I've spent 4 years watching children suffer while adults follow procedures that don't actually help anyone, I said. And I'm done watching. Sophia needs help now, not after we've filed the right forms. Luca studied me for another long moment, then nodded once. Nico, he called, and the guard reappeared immediately. Take Tommy to the secure room upstairs. Full protection. No one gets near him. No, Tommy protested. I want to help find Sophia. You've already helped more than you know, Luca said gently, cupping his son's face. Now I need you safe while I bring your sister home. Can you be brave a little longer for me? Tommy's eyes filled with tears, but he nodded. As Nico led him away, he looked back at me. You'll make sure Dad finds her? You won't let him give up? I promise, I said, having no idea if it was a promise I could keep. When Tommy was gone, Luca's entire demeanor shifted. The gentle father disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. He pulled out his phone and made 3 rapid calls. Marco, I need full intelligence on a white van. Partial plate HKR, blue stripe, damaged rear door. Last seen on Delancey 20 minutes ago. Traffic cameras, street cameras, every feed we have access to. 5-minute deadline. Vincent, pull up all recent chatter about trafficking operations. Someone grabbed a 16-year-old girl tonight. I want to know who and where before the hour is up. Santo, activate every contact we have with the police department. Tell them Luca Castellano is calling in every favor, every debt, every piece of leverage we have. My daughter is missing and I expect their full cooperation. Now, he ended the calls and looked at me. You should go. This is about to get very dangerous and very illegal. I'm staying, I said immediately. Miss Morgan, Kate. And I'm staying because you're going to need someone who knows what trafficking victims go through. Someone who can help Sophia once you find her. I work with traumatized kids every day. You handle the finding, I'll handle the healing. His jaw tightened. Do you have any idea what you're involving yourself in? I have some idea, I admitted. And I'm choosing to be involved anyway because that little boy trusts me and his sister needs advocates who actually care about her well-being, not just about closing cases. Luca stared at me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. You're either very brave or very stupid. I've been told I'm both. I crossed my arms. Are we going to stand here debating? Or are we going to find Sophia before it's too late? His phone buzzed. He answered immediately. Talk to me. Marco. I watched his expression as he listened, saw the lethal focus sharpen into something terrifying. Warehouse district on the North Dock. Of course they'd use the old Moretti processing plant. It's been abandoned for months. He paused. How many heat signatures? Another pause. His eyes met mine. 12 guards, 3 vehicles, and 6 smaller signatures that are likely captives. They're processing multiple victims tonight. His voice went absolutely flat. Assemble the team, full tactical. We go in quiet. We extract every victim, and we leave no one alive who touched my daughter. He ended the call and I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. This was it, the moment where I either walked away from whatever was about to happen, or I crossed a line I could never uncross. When you say, leave no one alive, I started. I mean exactly that, Luca interrupted. These men steal children. They sell them, abuse them, destroy them. The legal system will give them plea deals and light sentences if they're caught at all. My system is more permanent. He wasn't asking for my approval. He was stating a fact. What about the other victims? I asked. The other heat signatures? We'll extract everyone, get them medical care, help them contact families, provide resources for recovery. His gaze held mine. I'm a criminal, Kate, but I'm not a monster. Children are the line I never cross. Anyone who does cross it doesn't get to keep breathing. I should have been horrified. Should have insisted we call the police. Should have trusted the system I'd sworn to work within. But I'd seen too many cases where the system failed. Too many children who slipped through cracks because following procedure was more important than actual justice. How long until your team is ready? I asked. 15 minutes. But you're not coming. Yes, I am, I interrupted. Because when you find Sophia and those other victims, they're going to be terrified. They're going to need someone who isn't covered in blood and carrying weapons. Someone who can help them feel safe. Let your men handle the violence. Let me handle the aftermath. Luca looked at me for a long moment, and I could see him calculating, weighing risks, trying to reconcile this stubborn guidance counselor with whatever image he'd had of who would help him tonight. If you come, he said finally, you follow my orders exactly. No questions, no hesitation. People are going to die tonight, Kate. If you can't handle that, leave now. I thought about Sophia, 16 years old, sedated and terrified, being processed like cargo by men who saw her as merchandise. I thought about the other victims Tommy had mentioned, at least 5 more children whose lives hung in the balance. I thought about Tommy's trust, his desperate plea. You won't let him give up, will you? I can handle it, I said, and prayed I was telling the truth. Luca nodded once, then moved to a cabinet on the wall and opened it to reveal an arsenal that made my mouth go dry. He selected a handgun with practiced ease, checked the magazine, and slid it into a holster at his back. 15 minutes, he said, already heading for the door. Then we bring my daughter home. I followed him, my heart pounding, my hands shaking with adrenaline and fear and determination. Somewhere in a warehouse across town, Sophia Castellano was running out of time, and I'd just promised her little brother I'd make sure she came home safe, whatever it took. The 15 minutes Luca promised turned into a flurry of controlled chaos that reminded me of a military operation. The back room of the Marconi Club transformed into a command center, with men arriving in tactical gear, spreading blueprints of the warehouse district across the table, and speaking in clipped, efficient phrases that conveyed maximum information with minimum words. I stood against the wall, trying to stay out of the way while simultaneously trying to understand what I'd gotten myself into. These weren't thugs or street criminals, these were trained professionals moving with the kind of precision that suggested military backgrounds. Former special forces, maybe, or private security contractors who'd found more lucrative employment in Luca's organization. Kate, Luca's voice cut through my observation. He stood at the table, finger pointing to a specific location on the blueprint. Come here. I moved to his side, hyper-aware of how close he stood, how his presence seemed to create its own gravity field. Up close, I could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the shadow of stubble along his jaw, the barely contained violence simmering just beneath his controlled exterior. This is the Moretti processing plant, he said, indicating the blueprint. 3 stories, multiple entry points, but only 2 that won't trigger alarms. Marco's surveillance shows the captives are being held on the 2nd floor. Northeast corner. His finger traced a path. My team goes in here and here. Simultaneous breach. Neutralize the guards. Secure the perimeter. And me? I asked. You stay in the vehicle with Santo until we've cleared the building. Then and only then, you come in to help with the victims. His whiskey eyes fixed on me with intensity. I need your word, Kate. You do not enter that building until I personally give the all clear. These men are armed and they won't hesitate to kill anyone they see as a threat. I understand. Do you? He leaned closer, his voice dropping to something almost gentle despite the words. Because once you cross this threshold with me, there's no going back. You'll be complicit in what happens tonight. You'll have knowledge of crimes that could send you to prison if you ever testify against me. This is your last chance to walk away. I should have taken it. Should have called the police, trusted the system, let professionals handle this. But I'd spent 4 years watching the system fail children like Sophia, and I couldn't bring myself to bet her life on procedures and protocols that moved too slowly to save anyone. I gave Tommy my word, I said quietly. I'm not breaking it. Something shifted in Luca's expression, a crack in the armor that revealed genuine emotion underneath. Respect, maybe, or recognition of a kindred spirit. Someone else who put children's welfare above their own safety. Marco, he called. Get her a vest. A bulletproof vest that was too large for my frame was produced and strapped over my blouse. It was heavy, uncomfortable, and made breathing slightly difficult. But it was also tangible proof that Luca took my safety seriously, that despite his warnings, he was making sure I had protection. We move in 5, Luca announced to the room. Standard extraction protocol. Any captive you see gets immediate escort to the safe zone. Any hostile gets neutralized. Questions? There were none. These men knew their jobs. The ride to the warehouse district took 12 minutes in a convoy of 3 black SUVs with tinted windows. I sat in the back of the lead vehicle next to Santo, a mountain of a man who'd introduced himself as Luca's head of security. He had kind eyes that didn't match his intimidating build, and he'd quietly handed me a bottle of water during the drive. "First time?" he asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Is it that obvious? You're gripping the door handle like it's the only thing keeping you from flying out of the vehicle." He smiled slightly. "Mr. Castellano doesn't usually bring civilians on operations. You must have made quite an impression." "I just want to help his daughter," I said. "That's why he's bringing you," Santo replied. "He knows Sofia's going to need more than just rescue. She's going to need someone who understands trauma, who can help her process what happened." "You do that kind of work?" "Every day," I admitted. "Though usually it's after the fact, when the damage is already done. This is the first time I've been present for the actual rescue." Santo nodded thoughtfully. "Mr. Castellano is a good father, even if his methods aren't conventional. He loves those kids more than anything. Tommy and Sofia are the only truly good things in his life." He paused. "When his wife Maria died 3 years ago, something broke in him. He threw himself into the business, into building power, into making sure his children would never be vulnerable to anyone. But he forgot that power doesn't protect you from everything." I absorbed this information, filing it away. A widower raising 2 children alone, while running a criminal empire. No wonder Tommy had described his father as complicated. The SUV slowed to a stop in an alley 3 blocks from the Target warehouse. Through the tinted windows, I could see the skeletal outline of the abandoned Moretti plant rising against the night sky, broken windows, rusted fire escapes, the kind of place that screamed danger even from a distance. Luca appeared at my window, already transformed into someone different. He'd changed into black tactical gear that made him look even more dangerous, and he carried weapons with the casual familiarity of someone who'd used them many times before. His face was painted with dark camouflage, but his eyes, those whiskey eyes, still burned with barely contained fury. "We go silent from here," he said quietly, opening my door. "Santo, keep her safe. Radio silence until extraction begins." "Yes, sir." Luca looked at me, and for a moment, the hardened operator softened into the worried father. "I'm going to bring her home, Kate. Whatever it takes." "I know you will," I said, surprised by how much I believed it. Then he was gone, melting into the shadows with his team, moving with lethal grace toward the warehouse. Santo and I were left in the SUV, parked in a position that gave us a view of the warehouse's north entrance while keeping us concealed in the alley's darkness. "Now we wait," Santo said, checking his watch. "Should be about 8 minutes before they breach." Those 8 minutes felt like hours. I sat in the darkness, my heart pounding, my mind racing with everything that could go wrong. Sofia could already be gone, moved to another location. The intel could be bad. Luca's team could be outnumbered. This could all be a trap. Or it could work exactly as planned, and in a few minutes, I'd be face to face with traumatized victims who needed help I wasn't sure I could provide. My phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "Heading home now. Tutoring was great. These kids are so smart." Relief flooded through me. At least my sister was safe. I started to text back, then stopped. How could I explain where I was, what I was doing? Glad it went well. Be safe. Love you was all I could manage. "You have family?" Santo asked, noticing my phone. "A younger sister, 17. I've raised her since our parents died." I looked at him. "You?" "3 daughters," he said with obvious pride. 16, 14, and 10. They're the reason I work for Mr. Castellano. He pays well enough that my wife can stay home with them, that we can afford the good school district, that they'll go to college without crushing debt." He paused. "People think we're all monsters in this business, but most of us are just trying to take care of our families the best way we know how." Before I could respond, Santo's radio crackled to life. "Breach in 30 seconds. All teams in position." My heart rate spiked. This was really happening. Visual confirmation of captives. Another voice reported. 6 juveniles, all female. Ages appear consistent with trafficking profile. 12 hostiles, armed with handguns and 2 with automatic weapons. "Breach on my mark." Luca's voice came through, cold and controlled. 3, 2, 1, execute. Even from 3 blocks away, I heard the flashbang's sharp cracks that echoed through the night. Then came the gunfire, a staccato rhythm that made my whole body tense with fear. It lasted less than 2 minutes. 2 minutes of sustained shooting, shouted commands, and the unmistakable sounds of violence. Then silence. Building secure, Luca's voice reported. All hostiles neutralized. Casualties on our side. Marco took a round to the shoulder. Non-critical. Medic is with him. Captives are terrified but physically intact. Kate, we need you now. Santo was already moving, starting the engine and driving the 3 blocks to the warehouse entrance. My hands shook as I unbuckled my seatbelt, trying to prepare myself for whatever I was about to see. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. The warehouse entrance was controlled chaos. Luca's men were positioned at strategic points, weapons still drawn, eyes scanning for threats. 2 of them were loading an injured man, Marco, I assumed, into one of the SUVs. He was conscious and swearing in Italian, which I took as a good sign. Luca met me at the entrance, and I nearly didn't recognize him. His tactical gear was splattered with blood, not his, I realized with relief, and his expression was harder than I'd ever seen it. But when he saw me, something in his eyes softened. "Second floor," he said, his voice rough. "Northeast corner," like the intel said. 6 girls, ages 14 to 17. They're in shock. One of them is Sophia. He paused. She's asking for Tommy. Wants to know if her brother is safe. He's safe, I assured him. Can I see her? I'll take you up. He turned to Santo. Get the vehicles ready for medical transport. We'll need to get these girls checked out, then contact their families. What about the police? I asked as Luca led me through the warehouse. Shouldn't we report this? Get official help for the victims? We will, Luca said. But on our terms, with our lawyers present, ensuring these girls aren't traumatized further by interrogations and evidence collection tonight. They've been through enough. We climbed a rusted metal staircase to the 2nd floor. The space opened up into what had once been a processing area, now empty except for a corner that had been converted into a makeshift holding cell. Blankets on the floor, plastic zip ties scattered around, and 6 girls huddled together against the far wall. They all looked up when we entered, terror written across every face. They ranged from maybe 14 to 17 or 18, wearing the clothes they'd been taken in school uniforms, casual outfits. One girl in what looked like pajamas. Their eyes were wide with fear, their bodies pressed together for comfort and protection. And in the middle of them, I saw Sophia. She looked like her brother, same dark hair, same intelligent eyes, though hers were currently red from crying. She had a bruise forming on her left cheek, and her wrists showed marks from where she'd been restrained. But she was alive, conscious. And when she saw Luca, something in her expression cracked. "Papa," she whispered and started crying. Luca moved toward her, but I caught his arm. "Let me go first," I said quietly. "They're terrified of men right now. Even you." I could see him struggle with that. Could see the father in him desperate to comfort his daughter. But he nodded, stepping back and letting me approach alone. I moved slowly, keeping my hands visible, my posture non-threatening. "Hi," I said softly, addressing all of them. "My name is Kate. I'm a counselor, not a police officer. I'm here to help you get home safely." None of them moved. They watched me with the wary eyes of prey animals, ready to bolt at any sudden movement. "Sophia," I said, focusing on Luca's daughter. "Your brother Tommy sent me. He's safe. He's with your family, and he made me promise to bring you home. He was so brave tonight, Sophia. He ran for help the second those men took you. You taught him well." Sophia's eyes filled with fresh tears. "He's really okay? They didn't hurt him?" "He's completely fine. Worried about you, but safe." I knelt down, making myself smaller, less threatening. "I know you're all scared. I know you've been through something terrible tonight. But the men who took you are gone. They can't hurt you anymore. We're going to get you medical attention, contact your families, and make sure you have whatever support you need." "Who's we?" one of the other girls asked, her voice shaking. She looked about 15, with blonde hair and a split lip. "Who are you people? You're not cops." "No, we're not," I admitted. "The man who found you is Sophia's father. I struggled for how to explain Luca Castellano. He's someone with resources the police don't have. Someone who was able to find you quickly." "He killed them," another girl whispered, staring past me at Luca. "All of them. I heard the gunshots." "Yes," I said simply, because they deserved honesty. "The men who kidnapped you are dead. They'll never take anyone else, never hurt anyone else." I watched the girls process this. They should have been horrified, should have been more afraid of their violent rescuers than grateful. But slowly, one by one, I saw their expressions shift from terror to something else. Relief, savage satisfaction, the primal recognition that the monsters were gone. "I want to go home," the blonde girl said, starting to cry. "Please, I just want my mom." "We'll get you home," I promised. "All of you. But first, I need to know, are any of you hurt? Did those men hurt you?" They exchanged glances, silently communicating. Finally, Sophia spoke up. "They didn't. They didn't have time to do anything except drug us and tie us up. They said we were being processed tonight, that buyers were coming in the morning." Her voice broke. We were going to be sold. The horror of how close they'd come to something far worse than kidnapping settled over me. If Luca had been even a few hours slower, if Tommy hadn't been smart enough to remember those details, if I hadn't agreed to bypass protocol, I didn't let myself finish that thought. "Okay," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Here's what's going to happen. We're going to take you to a private medical facility, where doctors will check you over, make sure you're physically okay. Then we'll contact your families. You'll be home tonight, in your own beds, safe." "What about the police?" the blonde girl asked. "Don't we have to make statements or something?" "Eventually, yes," I admitted. "But not tonight. Tonight you rest, you heal. You're with your families. The legal stuff can wait until you're ready." I looked back at Luca, who'd been standing silently throughout this exchange. "Can you arrange the medical facility? Somewhere private. With female doctors, preferably?" "Already done," he said quietly. "Doctor Castellano, no relation, runs a private practice that handles sensitive cases. She's expecting us." Of course, he'd already thought of everything. This wasn't his first rescue operation, I realized. This was a man who'd built systems for exactly these situations. "Okay," I said, turning back to the girls. "Let's get you out of here. Can you all walk, or does anyone need assistance?" They could walk, though they moved like fawns on shaky legs, supporting each other as they stood. Sophia immediately moved to my side, and I put a protective arm around her shoulders. The other girls clustered around us, creating a small bubble of female solidarity. Luca and his men formed a protective perimeter as we descended the stairs and moved through the warehouse. I noticed the girls very carefully didn't look at the bodies. Luca's men had clearly done a thorough job of neutralizing hostiles. I didn't look either, focusing instead on getting these traumatized children to safety. The SUVs were waiting with engines running. Santo had somehow procured blankets, bottles of water, and protein bars, small comforts, but the girls fell on them with desperate gratitude. "Sophia rides with me," Luca said quietly. "The others can distribute among the vehicles. Dr. Castellano's clinic is 20 minutes from here." Sophia hesitated, looking at me uncertainly. I could see the conflict in her eyes, wanting her father's protection, but also wary of the violence she'd witnessed from him tonight. "I'll ride with you too," I offered, "if that's okay with your dad." Luca nodded, and I could see the gratitude in his expression. He understood that his daughter needed time to reconcile the father she knew with the dangerous man she'd seen tonight. The ride to the clinic was quiet. Sophia sat between Luca and me in the back seat, her hand gripping mine while she leaned against her father's shoulder. Luca held her with one arm, his other hand gently stroking her hair, his eyes closed in what looked like profound relief. "I'm sorry, Piccola," he murmured. "I'm so sorry this happened to you." "You found me," Sophia whispered back. "Tommy said you would. He said no matter what, you'd find me." "Always," Luca promised. "Always, Sophia. You and Tommy are everything to me." I felt like I was intruding on an intimate moment, but Sophia's grip on my hand kept me anchored there. She needed both of us, her father's strength and protection, and my gentler reassurance that she was going to be okay. "Kate," Sophia said suddenly, "Tommy trusts you. He doesn't trust people easily, but he said you were kind, that you listened to him when the other adults wanted him to wait." "Your brother is remarkably brave," I said, "and very smart. The details he remembered about the van and the men, that's what made it possible to find you so quickly." "He's always been like that," Sophia said with a hint of pride. "Notices everything, remembers everything. Mom used to say he had an old soul." Her voice caught on the word mom. Luca's arm tightened around her. "She'd be proud of both of you tonight. How you protected Tommy, how brave you were." "I was so scared," Sophia admitted. "When they put that cloth over my face and everything went dark, I thought..." She couldn't finish. "But you're safe now," I said firmly. "You're with your father. You're going to see a doctor, and then you're going home to Tommy. That's what matters. Not what could have happened, but what did happen. You survived. You're safe, and you're going to heal from this. Dr. Castellano's clinic was in an upscale neighborhood, housed in a converted brownstone that looked more like a spa than a medical facility. The doctor herself was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and an efficient manner that immediately put the girls at ease. 6 patients, all trafficking victims, all need full medical evaluation, Luca said as we entered. Priority is making sure they're physically safe. Psychological support can be arranged for follow-up. Understood, Dr. Castellano said. She looked at me. And you are? Kate Morgan. I'm a school counselor. I'm here to provide emotional support during the examinations. She nodded approvingly. Good. Having a female advocate present will help. Let's get started. The next 2 hours were emotionally exhausting. I sat with each girl during her examination, holding hands, offering comfort, explaining what the doctor was doing and why. Physically, they were all remarkably intact bruises, rope burns on wrists and ankles, effects of the sedatives wearing off, but nothing that wouldn't heal. Psychologically was another matter. These girls had been stolen from their lives, drugged, held captive, and told they were going to be sold. That kind of trauma didn't disappear just because they'd been rescued. While Dr. Castellano examined the last girl, I found Luca in the waiting room. He'd cleaned up the tactical gear replaced with jeans and a black shirt, the camouflage paint washed away. He looked exhausted, the adrenaline clearly wearing off to reveal the toll tonight had taken. How is she? He asked immediately. Sophia, is she? Physically, she's fine, I assured him, sitting down beside him. Bruised, shaken, but no serious injuries. Doctor. Castellano said she was lucky if you'd been even a few hours later. I trailed off, unable to finish. I know, Luca said quietly. His hands were clasped between his knees, and I noticed they were shaking slightly. When Tommy said Sophia had been taken, when I realized what might happen to her, He stopped, fighting for control. I've done terrible things, Kate. I've hurt people, broken laws, built an empire on violence and fear. But my children are the line. They're the only truly innocent things in my life. You found her, I said softly. You brought her home safe. That's what matters. Because of you, he corrected, looking at me with those intense whiskey eyes. If you hadn't listened to Tommy, if you hadn't brought him to me, if you'd followed protocol and waited for the police, he shook his head. Sophia would be gone. I owe you her life. You don't owe me anything, I protested. I just did what anyone should do, helped a child in need. Most people wouldn't have, Luca said. Most people would have followed the rules, protected themselves. Let the system handle it. You put yourself at risk, walked into my world knowing the danger, all for a child you'd never met. He reached out and gently took my hand. That's not normal, Kate. That's extraordinary. His touch sent warmth through me that had nothing to do with gratitude and everything to do with the man himself. I was suddenly very aware of how close we were sitting, how his thumb was unconsciously stroking across my knuckles, how his eyes held mine with an intensity that made breathing difficult. Mr. Castellano? Dr. Castellano appeared in the doorway. All 6 girls have been examined and cleared medically. I've given them mild sedatives to help them sleep tonight, and prescriptions for follow-up care. They're asking about going home. Luca stood immediately, all business again. Their families have been contacted? All except one, the blonde girl, Melissa Torres. Her parents aren't answering their phones. I stood as well. I can take her home personally, make sure she's safe. What's the address? An hour later, I'd personally delivered 5 traumatized girls to tearful, grateful families. Each reunion was emotionally wrenching parents who'd spent hours in agony suddenly holding their daughters again. Siblings crying with relief, the visceral proof that sometimes, miraculously, children came home safe. Melissa Torres was the last delivery. Her house was dark when we pulled up, an older home in a working-class neighborhood that had seen better days. I knocked on the door 3 times before a disheveled man answered, clearly drunk. What? He demanded, barely glancing at Melissa. Mr. Torres? I'm Kate Morgan. Your daughter was kidnapped tonight but has been safely recovered. She needs... Kidnapped? He laughed, a ugly sound. She probably ran off with some boy and made up a story when she got caught. Get inside, Melissa. We'll deal with this tomorrow. Melissa flinched at his tone, and I felt my protective instincts surge. Mr. Torres, your daughter was drugged and held captive by human traffickers. She's been through a serious trauma. I don't need some social worker telling me how to handle my kid, he interrupted. Melissa, inside. Now. I looked at Melissa, saw the resignation in her eyes, the way she'd already started shutting down emotionally. This was not a safe home. This was not a place where she'd receive the support and care she needed. Actually, I said, making a decision that would probably cost me my job if anyone found out. Melissa needs to be medically monitored tonight due to the sedatives she was given. I'll be taking her to a safe house where she can rest under professional supervision. You'll be notified of her location in the morning. You can't just take my daughter. I can and I am, I said firmly. If you have a problem with that, you can file a complaint with Chicago Child Protective Services. Otherwise, Melissa will be returned to you tomorrow after a proper medical and psychological evaluation. I was making this up as I went, but I said it with enough authority that Mr. Torres backed down, muttering curses as he slammed the door. Thank you, Melissa whispered as we walked back to the SUV where Santo waited. I didn't want to go in there. He's always worse when he's been drinking. My heart broke for this girl who'd been rescued from one nightmare only to face another at home. You'll stay somewhere safe tonight, I promised. We'll figure out tomorrow together. I pulled out my phone and called Luca. We have a problem. 20 minutes later, Melissa and I arrived at a beautiful townhouse in an upscale neighborhood. Luca met us at the door, and I noticed he'd changed clothes again now, wearing comfortable jeans and a soft sweater that made him look less like a crime lord and more like someone's dad. This is one of my properties, he explained as he led us inside. It's secure, comfortable, and fully stocked. Melissa, you'll stay here tonight with Kate. In the morning, we'll work out a better long-term solution. With me? I asked, surprised. You're the one she trusts, Luca said simply. And frankly, after tonight, I trust you more than most people I've known for years. If you're willing to stay with her, make sure she's okay. Of course I'm willing, I said immediately. I looked at Melissa. Is that okay with you? She nodded, relief evident on her face. Luca showed us around the townhouse, 3 bedrooms, a full kitchen, a bathroom with a soaking tub that looked like heaven. There's food in the fridge, clean clothes in the closets that should fit you both, and my number is programmed into the house phone. If you need anything, call. Security is outside, but they won't bother you unless there's a problem. He started to leave, then turned back to me. Kate, thank you. For everything tonight. For bringing Tommy to me. For helping with the girls. For being exactly who Sophia and the others needed. He struggled for words. You're remarkable. After he left, I helped Melissa get settled in one of the bedrooms, found her comfortable pajamas in the closet, and ran her a warm bath. While she soaked, I collapsed on the living room couch, finally allowing myself to feel the full weight of everything that had happened. I'd helped a crime boss execute an armed rescue. I'd witnessed the aftermath of violence. I'd essentially kidnapped a minor from her legal guardian. I'd crossed so many professional and legal lines tonight that I couldn't even count them all, and I didn't regret any of it. My phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Home safe. Heading to bed, love you. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by guilt. While I'd been helping rescue Sophia, my own sister had been out in the city, vulnerable, trusting that I'd always be there to protect her. Another text came through. This one from an unknown number. Tommy is asking about you. Wants to make sure you're okay. Can I tell him you're safe? Luca. I smiled despite my exhaustion. Yes. Tell him I'm fine and Sophia is too. We're all safe. The response came quickly. He says thank you for keeping your promise. So do I. Melissa emerged from the bathroom 20 minutes later, her hair damp, wearing pajamas that were slightly too big. She looked younger than 15, vulnerable and lost. Can't sleep? I asked as she sat on the couch beside me. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that warehouse, she admitted. I keep thinking about what would have happened if Sophia's dad hadn't found us. The things those men said they were going to do. She shuddered. I put an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. But he did find you. You're safe now, and those men can never hurt anyone again. Is it wrong that I'm glad they're dead? Melissa asked quietly. I should feel bad about that, right? But I don't. I'm just relieved they're gone. There's no wrong way to feel after trauma, I assured her. Whatever emotions come up, relief, anger, fear, even satisfaction that your abductors are gone. They're all valid. You survived something terrible, Melissa. However you need to process that is okay. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, and gradually I felt her breathing slow, her body relax against mine. She was falling asleep, finally feeling safe enough to let down her guard. My phone buzzed with another text from Luca. Sophia wants to talk to you. Says she needs to thank you properly. Would tomorrow morning work? Of course, I replied. I'll be bringing Melissa to see you anyway. We need to discuss her home situation. I already have my lawyers looking into it. No child goes from my protection into an unsafe home. We'll figure something out. I stared at that message for a long time. Luca Castellano, feared crime boss, using his considerable resources to ensure a traumatized girl had a safe place to heal. The contradiction between what he was and what he was doing shouldn't have made sense, but somehow it did. He was a criminal who loved his children enough to burn down the world to protect them. A violent man who understood that some things some people were worth fighting for no matter the cost. And I was starting to realize that I was one of those people. Morning came too quickly, filtered through expensive curtains that turned the sunlight soft and golden. I woke on the couch with a blanket I didn't remember pulling over myself, and the smell of fresh coffee drifting from the kitchen. Melissa stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with the focused concentration of someone trying very hard to act normal. She'd found clothes in one of the closets, jeans and a soft sweater that actually fit her properly, and had pulled her blonde hair into a ponytail. She looked so young, so ordinary, that it was hard to reconcile her with the terrified girl from last night. "You cook?" I asked, sitting up and immediately regretting it as every muscle in my body protested. Apparently, wearing a bulletproof vest and spending hours in emotional crisis mode had physical consequences. "My mom taught me before she left," Melissa said, not turning from the stove. "Dad doesn't cook, so it was either learn or live on takeout." She paused. "I made enough for both of us. Hope that's okay." "It's more than okay," I assured her, moving to the kitchen island. "Thank you." We ate in comfortable silence, and I marveled at the resilience of teenagers. Last night Melissa had been drugged, kidnapped, and held captive. This morning she was making pancakes and trying to reclaim some sense of normalcy. The human capacity for adaptation was extraordinary. "What happens now?" Melissa asked finally, pushing her half-eaten pancakes around her plate. "Do I have to go back to my dad's house?" "Not if it's not safe," I said firmly. "We're going to meet with Mr. Castellano this morning. He mentioned having lawyers look into your situation. There are options: foster care, emergency placement, possibly even emancipation given your age. Foster care means getting bounced around different homes, different schools, never settling anywhere," Melissa said quietly. "I've seen it happen to kids at my school. They just disappear into the system." My heart ached because she was right. The foster system in Chicago was overwhelmed and underfunded. Good placements were rare, and teenagers were the hardest to place. "Let's talk to Mr. Castellano first," I suggested. "He seems to have resources that might give us more options." An hour later, we arrived at an address Luca had texted me, not the Marconi Club, but an elegant brownstone in a residential neighborhood that screamed old money and careful discretion. Santo met us at the door, his massive frame somehow comforting rather than intimidating in the morning light. "Miss Morgan, Melissa," he greeted us warmly. "Mr. Castellano is expecting you. He's in the main study with Sophia and Tommy. They've been asking about you since dawn." The brownstone's interior was beautiful in an understated way: hardwood floors, expensive but comfortable furniture, and family photos lining the hallway. I caught glimpses of a younger Luca with 2 small children, a beautiful dark-haired woman who must have been his late wife Maria. Moments of normalcy captured and frozen in time. "Kate!" Tommy's voice preceded his appearance as he came barreling down the hallway, launching himself at me with the full force of a 7-year-old who'd been worried. "You came back. Dad said you would, but I wasn't sure. And Sophia said you were really nice, and—" "Tommy, let her breathe." Luca's voice came from the doorway of the study. He stood there in casual clothes, dark jeans, and a gray Henley that somehow made him look more dangerous than the tactical gear had. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it, and there were shadows under his eyes that suggested he'd slept about as well as I had. But when he looked at me, something in his expression softened. "Kate, thank you for coming." "Of course," I managed, very aware of Tommy still clinging to my waist, and the way Luca's gaze seemed to catalog every detail of my appearance. The clothes borrowed from his townhouse closet, my hair pulled into a messy bun, the exhaustion I couldn't quite hide. Sophia appeared behind her father, looking better than she had any right to after what she'd been through. She'd showered and changed into comfortable clothes, though I could see the bruise on her cheek had darkened overnight, but her eyes were clear, focused, and when she saw Melissa, Her expression brightened. "Melissa, you're okay?" The two girls embraced, and I saw them exchange the kind of look that passes between trauma survivors: mutual recognition, shared understanding, the bond that forms when you've survived hell together. "Why don't we all sit down?" Luca suggested, gesturing to the study. "We have a lot to discuss." The study was clearly Luca's personal space, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, filled with everything from classic literature to military strategy. A massive desk covered in papers, and a seating area with comfortable leather chairs arranged around a fireplace. Family photos dominated one wall, and I noticed most featured the children with their mother. Luca appeared in only a few, always slightly apart, as if he didn't quite belong in the frame. "First things first," Luca said, once we were all seated. Tommy immediately climbed into his lap, clearly needing the physical reassurance of his father's presence. "Sophia, how are you feeling this morning?" "Sore," she admitted. "And I had nightmares, but I'm okay, Papa. Really." She looked at me. "Kate, Tommy told me how you didn't even hesitate to help him, how you brought him straight to Dad instead of making him wait for police or social workers or any of the normal procedures." "Your brother was very persuasive," I said with a small smile. "And very brave." "He gets that from his sister," Luca said, pride evident in his voice. "Sophia, you protected Tommy. You made sure he got away, that he could get help. That took incredible courage." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "I was so scared. When they grabbed me, when I felt that cloth over my face, all I could think was that I'd never see you and Tommy again, that I'd failed you both." "You didn't fail anyone," Luca said firmly. He stood, crossing to kneel in front of his daughter, taking her hands in his. "You survived, Piccola. You fought, you protected your brother, and you came home. That's not failure, that's strength." Watching them together, this feared crime boss being so gentle with his traumatized daughter, this teenage girl seeking comfort from a father who'd literally killed to save her, I felt something shift in my chest. This wasn't the simple story of good versus evil I'd been taught to believe in. This was complicated, messy, human. "Mr. Castellano," Melissa said hesitantly. "Kate said you have lawyers looking into my situation." Luca turned his attention to her, and I watched his expression shift into something more businesslike. "I do. I had my legal team pull your file overnight. Your mother left when you were 8, whereabouts unknown. Your father has a history of alcohol abuse, 3 DUIs, and 2 prior reports to child services that were dismissed due to insufficient evidence." His voice hardened. "That's not a safe environment, Melissa." "I know," she said quietly. "But what choice do I have? I'm 15. Nobody wants to foster a teenager, and I can't get emancipated without proving I can support myself financially." "Actually," Luca said, "there might be another option." He looked at me. "Kate, what's your living situation like? Do you have space for a temporary foster placement?" I blinked, completely blindsided. "I what?" "You're a licensed counselor with child welfare training. You've already established rapport with Melissa. You're clearly committed to her well-being." Luca's gaze held mine. "If you were willing to take emergency guardianship, my lawyers could expedite the paperwork. Melissa would have a safe home with someone she trusts while we work on a longer-term solution." "I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with my 17-year-old sister," I said slowly. "I don't know if I'm qualified." "You're more qualified than most foster parents I've dealt with," Luca interrupted. "And Melissa clearly trusts you. That matters more than square footage." I looked at Melissa, saw the hope dawning in her eyes, the desperate plea she was trying to hide. She needed safety, stability, someone who would actually care about her well-being instead of just collecting a foster care check. "I'd need to talk to my sister," I said carefully. "This would affect her too. But if Lily's okay with it, and if Melissa wants this, then yes, I'll take emergency guardianship." Melissa's face crumpled with relief. "Really? You'd do that for me?" "Of course," I said, wondering what I was getting myself into. "We'll figure it out together. My lawyers will handle all the paperwork," Luca assured me. "And I'll provide financial support, don't argue," he added when I opened my mouth to protest. "Melissa's care is going to cost money. Food, clothes, therapy, school supplies. Let me help." "Why?" I asked bluntly. "Why are you doing all this? I understand Sophia is your daughter, but Melissa, the other girls, why invest so much in helping them?" Luca was quiet for a moment, his hand absently stroking Tommy's hair as the boy dozed against his chest. "Because I can't save everyone," he said finally. I can't undo all the damage my business has contributed to over the years. But I can save these girls. I can make sure that in this one instance, the monsters didn't win." He looked at me directly. "And because you showed me that sometimes the right thing and the legal thing aren't the same, you broke protocol to help Tommy. I'm just following your example." Before I could respond, Sophia spoke up. "Kate, can I talk to you? Privately?" Luca nodded permission, and I followed Sophia out of the study to a small sitting room down the hall. She closed the door and turned to face me, her expression serious beyond her 16 years. "I need to know something," she said. "Last night, when you were at the warehouse, did you see what my father did? Did you see him kill those men?" I chose my words carefully. I didn't see it directly. I heard gunshots. I saw the aftermath. "And you're not afraid of him?" Sophia pressed. "Most people are terrified of my father. They see the power, the violence, the criminal empire. They don't see," she struggled for words, "they don't see the man who reads Tommy bedtime stories every night, who used to have tea parties with me when I was little, who cried at my mother's funeral even though everyone expected him to be strong." "I see both," I admitted. "I see the dangerous man who runs a criminal organization, and I see the father who loves his children enough to do terrible things to protect them. Those two people can exist in the same body." Sophia nodded slowly. "I've always known what my father does, what his business involves. Mom tried to shield us from it, but after she died, Dad was more honest with us. He said we deserved to know the truth about where our privilege came from." She paused. "Last night, for the first time, I saw that side of him, the violent side, and it should have scared me, but instead, I just felt safe, because I knew he'd burn down the entire city to bring me home." "That must be confusing," I said gently. "It is," Sophia admitted. "But I think I'm starting to understand something. My father isn't a good man by most people's standards, but he's a good father, and maybe that's enough." She looked at me intently. "I see the way he looks at you, the way he listened when you talked about what the girls needed, the way he's trying to help Melissa even though he has no obligation to. You're changing him, Kate, making him want to be better." "Sophia, I don't think—" "Just promise me something," she interrupted. "Don't give up on him, on us. I know this is complicated and dangerous, and probably not what you signed up for when you became a school counselor, but we need you. Tommy needs you. Dad needs you. Even if he's too stubborn to admit it." I looked at this brave, intelligent 16-year-old who'd survived a nightmare and was already thinking about everyone else's well-being. "I promise," I heard myself say. "I'm not going anywhere." We returned to the study to find Luca on the phone, his expression darkening as he listened to whoever was on the other end. Tommy had been transferred to Santo's lap, still drowsing peacefully, while Melissa sat quietly reviewing what looked like legal documents. "When?" Luca said into the phone, his voice tight. "How many?" "I see. Double security on all family properties. Nobody comes or goes without verification. And get me everything we have on Viktor Kozlov. Everything." He ended the call and looked at me, his expression grim. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. "The trafficking ring that took Sophia wasn't independent," Luca said. "It was run by the Kozlov organization. Viktor Kozlov is the head of the Russian syndicate operating in Chicago, and he's not happy that I killed a dozen of his men and freed his merchandise." The casual way he said merchandise, referring to human beings, to children, made my blood run cold. "What does that mean for us?" Sophia asked, fear creeping into her voice. "It means the Kozlovs will retaliate," Luca said bluntly. "They can't let an attack on their operation go unanswered without looking weak, which means anyone associated with last night's rescue is now a potential target." His eyes found mine. "Including you, Kate." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Me? But I'm not part of your organization. I'm just a school counselor who helped rescue 6 girls from a trafficking operation," Luca interrupted. "Who was present at the raid? Who has knowledge of what happened and who was involved? The Kozlovs won't care about your intentions, Kate. They'll just see you as a threat that needs to be eliminated." My hand started shaking. "My sister. Lily. If they know about me, they might." Luca was already dialing his phone. "Santo, I need immediate protection detail on Kate Morgan's sister, Lily Morgan, age 17, currently lives at..." He looked at me expectantly. I gave him my address, my mind racing. How had my life gone from normal to nightmare in less than 24 hours? "She's being picked up from school right now," Luca said after ending the call. My men will bring her here where she'll be safe. But Kate, you need to understand what this means. You can't go home, can't go back to work, can't resume your normal life until we've dealt with the Kozlov threat. Dealt with? I repeated. What does that mean exactly? It means I'm going to war, Luca said flatly. The Kozlovs attacked my family. They created a threat to people under my protection. That doesn't stand. He stood, moving to his desk and pulling out a folder thick with documents. I've been building a case against their organization for months. Evidence of trafficking, money laundering, weapons dealing, connections to corrupt officials. I was waiting for the right moment to act. They just gave it to me. You're going to destroy them, I said, not quite a question. Completely, Luca confirmed. By the time I'm done, Viktor Kozlov will either be dead or in federal prison, and his organization will be dismantled. But it's going to take time, and it's going to be dangerous. Which is why I need everyone I care about somewhere safe. Everyone I care about. The phrase hung in the air, and I saw Sophia and Melissa exchange knowing glances. Where exactly is somewhere safe? I asked. I have a property upstate, Luca said. Secure, isolated, fully staffed. You, Lily, Melissa, Sophia, and Tommy will stay there with a protection detail while I handle the Kozlov situation. Absolutely not, I said immediately. You're not sending your children away while you start a war. They need their father. They need to be alive, Luca countered. Kate, I appreciate your concern, but this is how it has to be. I can't fight the Kozlovs and protect my family at the same time. They're safer away from me. Papa, no, Sophia said, standing. I'm not leaving you. Not after last night. What if something happens to you, and we're not here? Then you'll be safe, and you'll have each other, Luca said, his voice gentle but firm. Sophia, I need to know, you and Tommy are protected. That's the only way I can do what needs to be done. What about Kate? Tommy asked, suddenly awake and alert. She has to come too, right? She promised she wouldn't leave us. Luca's eyes found mine again, and I saw the question there, the offer, the dangerous invitation to step fully into his world, to accept his protection, to become part of whatever this complicated family unit was. I should have said no. Should have insisted on police protection, witness relocation, anything that didn't involve getting deeper into a mob war. But looking at Tommy's trusting face, Sophia's frightened eyes, Melissa's desperate hope, I couldn't walk away. I'll come, I said, but only until Lily is safe and the Kozlov threat is handled. Then Melissa and I need to establish some kind of normal life. Agreed, Luca said, relief evident in his expression. Santo will take you to the property today. I'll stay here to coordinate the response to the Kozlovs, but I'll visit when I can. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. Lily arrived, confused and frightened, demanding to know why armed men had pulled her out of school. I explained as much as I could that I'd helped rescue kidnapped girls, that the criminals involved were targeting anyone associated with the rescue, that we needed to hide somewhere safe for a while. She took it better than I expected. Lily had always been remarkably resilient, and after losing our parents, she'd learned to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. Plus, I think the presence of Sophia and Tommy helped. They were close to her age, clearly traumatized, and Lily's protective instincts kicked in immediately. So we're going into hiding with a mob boss's family, Lily summarized, standing in the Brownstones' kitchen where we'd been given privacy to talk. And you're what, dating him? Working for him? Neither, I protested. I'm just helping his daughter recover from trauma. It's professional. Lily gave me the kind of look only a younger sister can give, equal parts skepticism and amusement. Kate, I saw how he looked at you when we arrived. That man is not thinking professional thoughts. Heat flooded my cheeks. That's not, we're not, it's complicated. It's always complicated with you, Lily said, but she was smiling. But if we're doing this, if we're really going to hide out at some secure property with a mobster's kids, I need to know we're safe. That this Luca guy is actually going to protect us. He will, I said with certainty I didn't entirely understand. Whatever else he is, he protects the people he cares about, absolutely. And he cares about you, Lily observed. Interesting. Before I could respond, Santo appeared in the doorway. The vehicles are ready. We should leave within the hour. Miss Morgan, Miss Lily, you'll want to pack anything essential. We'll be at the property for at least a week, possibly longer. The property turned out to be a sprawling estate 2 hours north of Chicago, set on what looked like hundreds of acres of wooded land. The main house was a renovated farmhouse that managed to be both elegant and comfortable, with enough bedrooms for everyone to have their own space, and a security system that would make Fort Knox jealous. Santo gave us the tour, pointing out the panic rooms, the security cameras, the armed guards patrolling the perimeter. "Mr. Castellano takes protection seriously," he explained. "You're as safe here as anywhere in the world." That night, we all gathered in the main house's large kitchen for dinner. Sophia and Lily had bonded over cooking, collaborating on a pasta dish that filled the house with the smell of garlic and herbs. Tommy chattered excitedly about the woods surrounding the property, already planning expeditions to explore. Melissa was quieter but seemed more relaxed than I'd seen her since the rescue. It felt surreally normal, just a group of people sharing a meal, like family. Except we weren't family. We were a school counselor, her teenage sister, a foster placement, and a mob boss's children, all hiding from Russian gangsters who wanted us dead. My phone rang as we were cleaning up. Luca's name appeared on the screen. "How's the property?" he asked when I answered, and I could hear exhaustion in his voice. "Beautiful. Secure. The kids are settling in well." I moved to the window, looking out at the darkening woods. "How are things there?" "Complicated," he admitted. "The Kozlovs are making moves. Nothing direct yet, but they're testing our defenses, seeing where we're vulnerable. I'm coordinating with my allies, building the case against them, preparing for what's coming." "Be careful," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. "Always am." There was a pause. "Kate, I need you to know something. What you did last night, what you're doing now, taking Melissa in, protecting my children, accepting my protection even though it puts you at risk, that's not nothing. You didn't have to do any of it." "Yes, I did," I said softly. "Because it was the right thing to do." "Most people don't care about right," Luca said. "They care about safe, about easy, about protecting themselves. You're different. He trailed off, seeming to struggle for words. "You're remarkable. Kate Morgan. And I'm grateful you walked into my life, even under terrible circumstances." My heart was pounding. "Luca, get some rest," he interrupted gently. "I'll call tomorrow. And Kate, keep Tommy and Sophia safe for me. They're everything." "I will," I promised. After we hung up, I stood at the window for a long time, watching the security lights create pools of illumination in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Luca Castellano was preparing for war, and somehow, impossibly, I'd become someone worth protecting in that war. Sophia found me there an hour later. "Can't sleep?" she asked, joining me at the window. "Too much on my mind," I admitted. "Dad called, didn't he?" When I nodded, she smiled slightly. "He always calls to check on us when he's worried, sometimes 5 or 6 times a day." She paused. "But he called your phone. Not mine, not the house line. Yours. He probably just wanted to make sure everyone was settling in." "Kate," Sophia interrupted gently. "It's okay to care about him. I know he's complicated and dangerous and everything you probably think you shouldn't want. But he's also capable of incredible loyalty and love when he lets himself feel it." She looked at me seriously. "He hasn't let himself feel it since Mom died. Until you, Sophia, your father and I barely know each other. You know the important things," she countered. "You know he'd do anything for his children. You know he keeps his promises. You know he's trying to be better than what his world expects him to be. That's more than most people know about him, even after years." She was right, I realized. In less than 24 hours, I'd seen Luca Castellano at his most vulnerable and his most dangerous. I'd seen the loving father and the lethal protector, the man trying to escape his legacy and the criminal willing to kill to save his daughter. And despite every logical reason to be terrified, to distance myself, to protect my own safety, I was falling for him. "This is going to get complicated, isn't it?" I said aloud. Sophia laughed softly. "Kate, it's already complicated. Might as well embrace it." Over the next week, we fell into an unexpected rhythm. The estate became a strange sanctuary, where normal life continued despite the abnormal circumstances. Lily and Sophia studied together for their respective classes, working through assignments that teachers had emailed. Tommy explored the woods with enthusiastic energy, always accompanied by at least 2 security guards. Melissa slowly began to relax, the constant fear in her eyes gradually easing, and I found myself in the unfamiliar role of guardian to this makeshift family, handling everything from mediating arguments over bathroom time to sitting with Tommy during nightmares about men in white vans. Luca called every evening, ostensibly to check on his children, but always finding reasons to keep me on the phone long after Sophia and Tommy had said goodnight. We talked about everything: his childhood in Chicago's Italian district, my parents' death and sudden guardianship of Lily, his late wife Maria, and the hole she'd left, my work with traumatized children, and why I'd chosen that path. I thought I could save everyone, I admitted one night, curled up in the estate's library while everyone else slept. Every kid who walked into my office. I thought if I just tried hard enough, cared enough, I could fix their situations. But you can't save everyone. The system is too broken. The problem's too big. So you save the ones you can, Luca said quietly. Like Melissa, like my children, in your own way. That's not failure, Kate. That's courage. Is that what you tell yourself? I asked. When you look at your criminal empire and the damage it's caused? No, he said honestly. I tell myself I'm a monster doing monstrous things to protect the people I love. But then I met you, and you looked at me like I could be something better, like the monster was just a role I was playing, not who I really was. Maybe it is, I said softly. Maybe you've been playing the part so long you forgot you had a choice. I'm starting to remember, Luca murmured. You're reminding me. On the 8th day, everything changed. I was in the kitchen with Lily and Melissa, teaching them how to make our mother's lasagna recipe, when Santo burst in with an expression I'd never seen on him, pure rage barely contained. Everyone to the safe room, he ordered. Now. What's wrong? I asked, fear flooding through me. The Kozlovs just made their move, Santo said grimly. They hit 3 of Mr. Castellano's properties simultaneously. One of them was the brownstone in the city. He paused. Luca was there. He's alive, but he's been shot. The world tilted sideways. How bad? Bad enough that he's being transported to a secure medical facility. He's asking for you. I didn't hesitate. Take me to him. Kate. No, Lily protested. It's too dangerous. He's asking for me, I repeated. And I'm going. Santo, please. Santo studied me for a long moment, then nodded. The property is secure. You'll all be safe here. I'll have a team bring Kate to the medical facility and stay with her. The drive back to Chicago took 90 minutes that felt like hours. Santo drove in grim silence while I sat in the back, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Shot could mean anything from a graze to life-threatening injuries. Asking for me could mean he wanted to say goodbye. The secure medical facility was a private clinic in an upscale suburb, the kind of place that asked no questions and treated gunshot wounds with the same discretion as cosmetic procedures. Santo led me through a back entrance to a private room on the 3rd floor. Luca was propped up in the hospital bed, his chest wrapped in bandages, an IV in his arm. He looked pale and exhausted, but his eyes were alert. When he saw me, relief flooded his expression. Kate, you came. Of course I came, I said, moving to his bedside. My hands were shaking as I took the one without the IV. What happened? Kozlov sent a hit squad to the brownstone. 20 men, fully armed. We were ready for them, but not quite ready enough. He gestured to his bandaged chest, took one to the shoulder, through and through. The doctor says I'll be fine, but it's going to hurt like hell for a few weeks. You could have died, I said, my voice breaking. But I didn't, Luca said gently. He squeezed my hand. Kate, I need to tell you something. The attack on the brownstone was a distraction. While my men were defending that location, Kozlov hit 2 of my warehouses and got away with significant assets. He's escalating, trying to force me into a direct confrontation. So give it to him, I said. End this. I plan to, Luca said. But I need you to know what I'm about to do. The moves I'm going to make. They're going to be violent. People are going to die. A lot of people. And when it's over, even if I win, I'll have blood on my hands that won't wash off. You already have blood on your hands, I pointed out. From the trafficking rescue. From running your organization. This isn't new, Luca, but it will be worse, he insisted. And I need to know after this is over, when you've seen the full extent of what I'm capable of, will you still look at me the same way? Will you still see something worth saving? I looked at this dangerous, complicated man who'd been shot defending his territory, who was asking permission to unleash hell on his enemies, who somehow still cared what I thought of him. I see you, Luca Castellano, I said firmly. All of you, the criminal and the father, the killer and the protector, the monster and the man trying to be better. And I'm not going anywhere. Something broke in his expression. He pulled me closer with surprising strength for someone who'd just been shot, and kissed me. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was desperate and claiming and full of everything he couldn't say, fear that he'd almost died, relief that I was here, need that went beyond physical attraction into something deeper and more complicated. I kissed him back just as fiercely, my hands framing his face, careful of his injuries but unable to hold back. This was insane and dangerous and absolutely not what I should be doing. But I'd never felt more certain of anything. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Luka rested his forehead against mine. "When this is over," he said quietly, "when Kozlov is dealt with and my children are safe and you're not in danger anymore, I want to see if this could be something real. If we could be something real." "We're already something real," I said. "We have been since Tommy brought me to the Marconi Club." "Then let me protect it," Luka said. "Let me end this threat so we can find out what we could be without a war hanging over us." "Okay," I agreed. "But Luka, come back alive. Tommy and Sophia need their father." And I stopped, not quite ready to say the words. "I know," he said, understanding anyway. "I need you too, Kate. More than I've needed anyone in a very long time." A knock on the door interrupted us. Santo entered, his expression serious. "Boss, we have a situation. Viktor Kozlov just sent a message. He wants to meet. Face to face, neutral territory, to discuss terms." Luka's expression hardened. "Terms for what?" "Your surrender," Santo said flatly. "He's offering to spare your family in exchange for you stepping down, handing over your organization, and leaving Chicago permanently." "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "It's a trap anyway," Luka said calmly. "Kozlov has no intention of honoring any agreement. He wants me vulnerable so he can finish what he started." He looked at Santo. "Set up the meeting. Tell him I agree to his terms." "Boss, it's not a surrender, Santo. It's an ambush. Ours, not his." Luka's smile was cold. "Viktor Kozlov wants a meeting? Let's give him one he'll never forget." Over the next 48 hours, I watched Luka Castellano orchestrate what could only be described as a military campaign. From his hospital bed, he coordinated with his lieutenants, positioned his men, gathered intelligence on Kozlov's organization, and built a trap that would end the threat once and for all. I stayed with him through all of it, partly because I wanted to, and partly because Santo had quietly informed me that leaving the clinic would be inadvisable, given that Kozlov now knew I was associated with Luka. So I occupied the chair beside his bed, watching him work, occasionally offering observations or questions that sometimes helped him see angles he'd missed. "You're good at this," Luka said on the second night, after a particularly productive strategy session with his team. "Seeing patterns, asking the right questions. You should have been a detective instead of a counselor." "I'm using the same skills," I pointed out. "Reading people, understanding motivations, predicting behavior. It's just usually applied to traumatized children instead of criminal organizations." "Kozlov is basically a traumatized child," Luka said dryly. "Just one with an army and no conscience." The meeting was set for the third night after the shooting, a supposedly neutral location in an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city. Kozlov would bring 10 men. Luka would bring 10 men. They would discuss terms. Except Luka had no intention of discussing anything. "I want you to stay here," he said the morning of the meeting. "Santo will keep you safe. If something goes wrong—" "Nothing is going wrong," I interrupted. "You're going to end this, protect your family, and come back. That's what's happening. Kate, Luka, I've watched you plan this operation. I've seen how thorough you are, how many contingencies you've prepared for. I trust you." I took his hand. "So trust yourself. You're going to win." He pulled me down for a kiss that held promises and prayers in equal measure. "When I come back," he murmured against my lips, "I'm taking you and the kids somewhere safe, somewhere normal. Maybe we'll try being a regular family for a while." "We're already a family," I said. "Just not a regular one." He left at dusk, flanked by Santo and his best men. I watched from the clinic window as their convoy of vehicles disappeared into the Chicago night, and I prayed to a God I wasn't sure I believed in anymore that he'd come back alive. The waiting was agony. Hours passed with no word. I tried to distract myself with work reviewing Melissa's foster care paperwork, checking in with Lily and the kids at the estate, anything to keep my mind occupied. But all I could think about was Luka walking into a trap, Kozlov's men opening fire, the man I'd somehow fallen for dying in some abandoned factory while I sat uselessly in a hospital room. My phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Santo's name on the screen. My hands shook as I answered. Is he? He's fine, Santo said immediately. We all are. It's over, Kate. Kozlov is dead. His lieutenants are dead or in custody. And the FBI has enough evidence to dismantle the entire organization. The threat is gone. Relief hit me so hard I had to sit down. When is he coming back? Hour? Maybe 2. He's handling cleanup with the authorities. But he wanted me to call you first. Let you know he kept his promise. He's coming home. When Luca finally walked through the door at 1:30 a.m., covered in dirt and gunpowder residue but gloriously alive, I didn't let him say a word before throwing myself into his arms. He caught me, ignoring the pain from his shoulder wound, and held on like I was the only thing keeping him grounded. It's over, he murmured into my hair. You're safe. The kids are safe. It's finally over. We stood there for a long time, holding each other while the city slept around us. And I realized that somewhere between Tommy's desperate plea for help and this moment, my life had completely transformed. I was no longer just Kate Morgan, school counselor. I was Kate Morgan, guardian to a traumatized teenager. Kate Morgan, who'd helped rescue trafficking victims. Kate Morgan, who'd fallen in love with a man who'd kill to protect his family. Kate Morgan, who'd finally found where she belonged. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.